Hi there, welcome to Caffeinated Crafting. My name is Daniela, known as Caffeinated Gert all around the interwebs. It is Sunday, September the 7th, and it's time to do a little catch up. You can find me on the interwebs as Caffeinated Gert on Ravelry and Instagram. There is actually a blog even that you can follow, which is just the videos. But if for some reason you have issues with Ravelry at the moment, that's another place besides YouTube that you can go and watch this podcast, and that is caffeinatedcrafting.blogspot.com. There is a Ravelry group called Caffeinated Crafting where there are fun knit-alongs, projects, a little chatter sometimes. We're kind of quiet. But it's a fun time. There's information about Hats for Kiddos, which is a hat drive for children 0 to 3 here in Middle Tennessee. That's going through October 31st. We've talked a lot about it and shown off prizes in the last couple of episodes. There's more prizes coming, I found out today. It's exciting. You have to knit, crochet, or sew. You could do like little fleece hats. 5 hats and get them to me in order to be entered for prizes. And you can reach out to me, preferably on Ravelry, but if you have issues with that, you can send me a DM on Instagram and I will get you, Pistachio's being rowdy, I will get you my address so you can mail me hats. I think that's all the housekeeping. Pretty sure. Alright, so I have some finished things this week. I had vacation last week and was very productive because I was productive around the house because I wanted to tidy up like the bathroom, the kitchen, give things, a good run through in here, did that. But then during the day while Aiden had class, because he's doing remote learning this year, I had to be quiet because it can't be mom running around in the background while he's doing Zoom classes or whatever. So that meant I had lots of knitting time along with my tidying up time because I had to be quiet during those times. It worked out really nicely, and I slept late every day. Lord, we got a new mattress, and it's great because it's very comfortable, but then it's also bad because I'm sleeping more than usual. Like today I slept until 10:30. I don't remember the last time I slept until 10:30. That's just unheard of. I'm always up by probably 7:30, 8 o'clock. 9 o'clock is really late for me because normally after a while, I get uncomfortable in the bed and I'm just like, I just can't sleep anymore. But man, let me tell you, 10:30. I slept until 10:30. But then half of my day's gone and I feel bad about it, but whatever. I'm rested. So finished things. I knit 4 gnomes since the last time we talked. I knit 1-2 pattern and I used the Oh Gnome You Didn't by Sarah Shira. And here she is imagined_landscapes on Instagram. And you can find her on, there's an Imagined Landscapes group on Ravelry. She's got multiple adorable gnome patterns. All the different gnomes I've been knitting are from her patterns. Super cute, very well written patterns. If you're in the mood for a toy, I highly recommend it. They're all great. So the first one I finished is this little girl. I love her. I love her so much. She is knit out of dealer yarn. So, okay, so this part, I'm not sure where the yarn came from, but this part is Knitty & Color, and so is this. This little pink tip left over is from Whimsy Stitches. And then the bottom pink is from Unwind Yarn Company. All the scraps used up. The beige on the nose, that is, I think it's Malabrigo. It's some leftover I had from a project way back when, but it's serving me very well for these little gnomes. She's got pockets she can put her little hands on. The pockets match her hat and her scarf, and those are from Knitting Color. I don't remember what the colors are, but that's where who the dyers are. I love her. I love her so much. Instead of doing the tassels on the end, I did the little swirly, which is an idea I got from one of the other gnomes. It's really fun now that I have knit multiples of the patterns to incorporate some of the variety of patterns into one gnome. You'll see I really did that with the very last one I'm going to show you. Because you can pick the pieces that you like of each gnome and then just kind of make your own version of a gnome. So I guess her name is Pinky. What else could it be, right? Pinky. I still haven't named the ones I showed you last time. They haven't spoken to me, but this is Pinky. And then I finished, pretty sure I showed you the beginnings of him. This is my big old gnome, and I love him. Is he not the cutest? I love him. I do. Look at that big old nose and beard. I used the little twirly hat on this one. It's so cute. This one's really heavy. I put a lot of pellets in him. So what I'm doing to make them stand up nicely, when I get to the bottom, and she says to fill with pellets, beans, whatever you want to use. I'm using these poly pellets. It says to just pour them in there after using some like polyfill. This stuff is what I'm using for polyfill, which is also from, well, it's the same brand. It's like Polyfill is the brand, because that's what was on sale. I've gotten other brand fiberfill, but that's what was on sale. So hey, it's like the name brand. Anyway, so instead of just pouring the pellets in there, and I guess they're supposed to be held in place because you fiberfill around them, I'm skeptical of that. So what I've been doing is I have a bunch of these organza bags left over from when I did my Christmas swap last year. And I have a bunch because when I bought them, I got like 100 and I only needed 24. So what I'm doing is I'm pouring the pellets into my little organza bag. And for the big gnome, I actually had a couple of bigger ones that I had saved. So they were probably twice as big as this one, and he's got 2 in his butt. So what I do is I pour, like, you know, I don't like measure it or anything, but I pour the pellets in here like this, and then I cinch the top, make this ribbon go around one way, and then that ribbon go around to the other way. So one ribbon all the way around to the right and one all the way around to the left, so that they cross each other in the back. And then I just tie a knot in it to keep it closed. And then so I have a little package of poly pellets, and when they go in the gnome like this, like, then they have a nice flat bottom to sit on. So it's not quite even on top, obviously, but it doesn't matter because that's up inside the gnome. But then you have this nice little flat surface for the gnome to sit on. And so that's my secret to getting him to sit nicely and have a flat butt. Which is kind of important because you want these things to sit nicely. Because I didn't do that on some of the first ones, and you can tell the difference in how they sit. So if you're going to put pellets in them, I mean, you know, you can just put them in there. But if you just put them in there without having them in the little bag, then I feel like also they like move around and stuff, so they wouldn't really give you that nice flat weight at the bottom to sit well. So I just like this little trick. And you can get, like I said, I had these left over, but you can get like 100 little organza bags on Amazon for like $6-7. So if you either have some, or you can put them in some other kind of little bag, it doesn't have to be an organza bag. I just like the idea of them being contained and not falling out, especially if you end up giving the gnome to a kid and they get loved up on. I feel like that's a little bit safer. I wouldn't give these to a tiny kid. That said, just if I made one for a tiny kid, I just wouldn't put any pellets at all in it. But if you're making them for someone older, or if you want them to sit well, use a little bag. So now I have my next bag for whenever I cast on my next gnome, because you know I can't stop. So I showed you Pinky, and I showed you the big one, and he doesn't have a name either, except he's the big one. And then I decided I needed a little witchy gnome, because Halloween's coming. So here he is. Now I just made him, I made this one without looking at any of the patterns. And I love him because he's just a fat little thing. I mean, look how much, look how much smaller he is. But then on the other hand, when I made the one after that, I kind of looked at the pattern again because he was so much smaller. I kind of like that, but the next one, I don't want him to be so small. I made up the beard as I went. He has a fancy little beard, a little nose there, and I started the hat by casting on, I think, 12 more stitches than it said, and then decreasing down to the number that it actually calls for, which gave me like the little brim. And then I did not do any ribbing. Normally you cast on and do ribbing for the hats, because at that point I wanted a little witchy hat, and that would be weird to have ribbing. And then I knit him up like you would following the, I think it's the Never Not Gnoming hat, or darn close. But then I also put a couple of pleats in him. I know you can see that because the yarn, see the little bumps, the pleats. So his hat would lean to the side, which is from one of the other gnomes. But I don't remember, is it that one that, oh no, you didn't? Here, let me see. Let's look at. Gnome Pun Intended is the one with the little side leaning hat. Now in the Gnome Pun Intended, there's a bunch of pleats, and I only did like a little bit just so he would, you know, just lean to the side a little bit rather than stick straight up, just so it's a little witchy. So here's the black yarn, I think is left over Malabrigo. I think it's actually from the same project that I knit, that I used the beard yarn for. I think that was actually from the same project. And the beard is also Malabrigo. It's the same as what I used on the nose on Pinky. And the green is from a Halloween mini skein kit that I got from, it's from Knitting in Color. And I got that while I was laid up with my leg like 5 years ago. I actually knit socks out of the kit, the mini skein kit. But I didn't use all the yarn because that would have been some really long socks. And this green was left over. And at first I was going to use, I have leftovers that's also Knitting in Color. It's Witch Please. But then I spotted this green and I decided he needed to be this green. I'll probably still use the Witch Please in another gnome, another Halloweeny gnome. I want to make a couple as a gift. And then obviously keep one too. I'm not sure if I'll keep this one or this one will be a gift. might be part of the gift, because then I figure I have a tall one and a short one, and they can kind of sit together and look cute. And then make myself like a regular size one, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. I can't stop. They're small. They get done fast. They're easy. I'm using up all these little tiny bits. Like, this is all I had of this. Well, there's a tiny bit of green left of this green. I kept a little bit too much because I kept some out so I could do the arms. So the bottom is actually a different color. This isn't Whimsy Stitches green. It's the leftover from a project you'll see soon. So I have just a tiny bit, probably not enough to knit like a fourth of a body, but I'll use that. So I'm using up all these tiny bits from projects that are like from forever ago, and you know, it's like it's reminiscing of the yarn, like, oh, I made this. It's just like knitting a memory blanket, but it's fun. So my son is like, what are you gonna do with all these? So some of them will be gifts for Christmas and whatnot, and then some of them I'm gonna stick them in my Christmas tree. They're gonna I'm decorating my Christmas tree with gnomes this year. I'll take a picture when it's time and show them off. So little Witchy Gnome. And then last night I finished this one. So I made up the hat myself. So I just did like a square top hat, and then I added tassels. I used the scarf, like the Oh Gnome You Didn't scarf, and I put the pouch on her like from Nice to Gnome You, although I did it a little too low. It should be higher, but you know, her hands still kind of go. I made her arms really long so they would go. They can still go. Her hands can go in her pockets. Here, let me show you. Just barely, but they can get there. So she's super fun. So I incorporated multiple patterns in this one, and I made her kind of tall. I think it's because I knit her right after I knit this one, and I'm like, oh, this one's so short, so I made this one really tall. Or not really tall, I mean, you know, taller. See how much taller she is? So see, and this one is made to pattern, and it's kind of, she's kind of in between. So if I could hold them all, let's see, so you can see the different sizes, but I like having them different. I don't want them all to be the same. So just by changing, like when you do your decreases a little bit or whatever, you can really change the size up, and it's really easy to do, and it's just fun to give them all their own little personality. So I decided, because of the yarn, this yarn was from Brew City Knits, and it came from the same mini skein kit. So I love how it complements, so that it's the same colors, but this mini skein obviously was mostly yellow, and it's the same as I used for the scarf, and this mini skein was mostly pink, but it's the same colors. And I love how this one turned out, because obviously all the yarn matches, but I did use up 2 little skeins, and I used up all of those are gone. I made the beard up as I went again, because I wanted a really long, narrow-ish beard. I wanted a really long beard because she's so tall. I wanted the beard to go all the way down to the pocket. And I was inspired by the Nice to Gnome You beard in the way I did the cables and whatnot. But then I did make it up on my own, so I could make it longer. But there she is. And her name is Tootie, because the yarn makes me think Tutti Frutti. I don't remember what the actual yarn was called, because it's another one of those sets I've had for years, and it's cute dough. All right, so those are the gnomes I've knit this last couple of weeks. It's only been a couple of weeks, right? Pretty sure. So let me stick them over here. Don't forget, the designer is Sarah Shira. It's SCHIRA. RA, but you can find her as Imagined Landscapes on Ravelry and Instagram. She is doing a Gnome Fest right now, so if you knit a gnome and post it in a group, you can even win a prize. Speaking of groups on Ravelry, so for the last, I think, for the last 3 years, I have done a swap for Christmas called the 24 Days of Cheer Swap, and sign-ups for this swap are happening right now. So if you are interested in a Christmassy mini skein swap, so what it entails is you get a partner, and then you make them an advent calendar, which is why I had all those organza bags, because that's what I put my little mini skeins in. I wrap them in Christmas paper and then put them in there. So once you get your partner, you decide, do you want to do like 5 grams or 7 grams? Are you guys working on a bigger project where you might want to do 10 grams of leftover yarn? And you send your partner 24 little packages, one for each day, to open during Advent. And then if you so choose, if you and your partner can discuss it, you can do a full skein for the last day. So, and then in the past, I've done, like, there might be a couple of days where, like, I have some cute notions I put in there, or maybe add a little candy to the mini skein, or, you know, other little cute things. But so every day during Advent, you get a little skein of yarn, a little ball of yarn. So the first 2 years, I used those in my, my memory square blanket, which was really nice because while you can say, you know, I don't care for this particular color, and my answer is usually black because I don't enjoy knitting with black at all, then you're getting leftovers from this person's stash, and they're making you these little balls of yarn. So for the memory blanket, it was really nice because it gave me a lot of variety in my squares without having to dip into colors that I normally wouldn't choose, because I tend to knit with bright colors, have you noticed? But that gave me some neutrals and more subdued things to kind of make it all mesh together and give it a better balance. Last year I knit this is smart, I have my laptop set up like in front of me, and I can actually like look things up. I need to do that from now on. So last year during Christmas, I knit the outline. It's like a Shawley scarf by Beata Jezik, who is hang on, I have some hedgehog fibers. It's a free pattern, and it was super fun. You can look at it on my project page if you'd like. So I used the Advent minis, and then because that wouldn't have been enough for the whole project, and to balance out that color, because I would pick, you know, open one each day and then add it to the shawl. But then sometimes it got a little too muted and I needed a little pop, so then I would add a stripe of like my own little leftover mini or something. But I love how that project turned out. And it was really nice for an Advent project, and it's just meditative for me almost. I've found that it's nice to lead up to Christmas and have that little, it's like, you know, it doesn't take you a lot to knit it. It's just a little tiny ball. So maybe like, you know, 30 minutes a day of just being calm before the holidays and getting a little knitting in, and it's really nice. Also, basically, except for the shipping, because you're using leftovers, it's free. So while I love all the Advent calendars that all the different dyers are putting out, they're expensive. I mean, it's a lot of work for them. I'm not saying they shouldn't be expensive. But this way, I can swap with someone, kind of get the same experience, although I don't know what I'm going to get. and still get that advent calendar. So if you're interested in joining up, the group is called For the Love of Minis, as in mini skeins, but it's MINNIES, MINNIE''S, For the Love of Minis. And the swap is 24 Days of Cheer. It is run by the awesome Hot Pink Socks, and AKA Millie of the Anders Mill podcast is who actually started it originally. You can go to the thread that says interested in 2020 24 Days of Cheer and just pop in there and say, I'm interested. And then when she assigns partners within the next, I would say she's going to do it very soon. Usually we get our partners in September, I think. Then you can get a partner and join the swap. So if you're interested, pop in there soon, because I'm pretty sure she's about to do the partners, at least within the next probably couple of weeks. Usually we get them by the end of September, so that works. So what I have done in the past, the first year I just made little balls, but my partner sent me my yarn on little, what are these things called? Like little floss things, little bobbins. They're tiny little bobbins. And so what I do is I have plastic ones, but I've also accumulated cardboard ones. So what I do is I have a little scale. I put this on there, hit the tear button, and then I wind yarn around it. And here, I wind yarn around it, and then weigh it to make sure I get the weight that is required, that you and your partner agreed upon. And so then what it ends up looking like is something like this. So this is one of the ones that I have left over from, I guess, last year. No, I don't know where this one came from. I may have made this one myself and just didn't mail it. So I have an extra one. But so I have accumulated all these little bobbins, and so I reuse them at this point. I have more in my bag in there, but these are the ones I've finished up on my gnomes so far. So all these bobbins had just a little bit, well, some of them were full like this one, but at least a little bit of yarn, and I have emptied all these bobbins on the gnomes I've knit. So anyway, if you're interested in a Christmassy swap, highly recommend that one. It has been super fun, very low pressure. You can really use the leftovers you have. And if you don't have leftovers and you want to, do mini skeins, another thing I have done when I have mini skeins sets, and if I choose to, I've weight off enough for my partner and then use the rest of the mini skein for myself. Because if you buy a full on, most mini skeins are what, at least 40 grams. You can wind off the between 5 and 10 grams of whatever you're sending to your partner, and then use the rest of it in the project for yourself. So there you go. Anyway, if you're interested, go check them out. For the Love of Minis group, and the swap is 24 Days of Cheer. All right, so I have a couple other projects that I've started and finished, like Wham Bam, Thank You Ma'am, which is kind of fun. So I bought a knitting machine, not a fancy one. I bought it back in, oh Lord, I don't even remember, February, March, early March maybe. And it sat in the box until this week because I just haven't had time to mess with it. And I thought it would take time to mess with it and figure it out, but it's so easy. I don't know what I was waiting for because it was way easy. Now, I did finish a couple of projects on it. So the one I have is this. It's the Centro knitting machine. I have the one with 48 teeth. It's plastic, very basic, but kind of fun. So the first thing I made was This is why I left the hair down, even though it's like wild. The first thing I made was this hat. So basically it's a long tube that I then squished together. Literally, I squished it together and sewed the top together. And so it gives me this hat, which I can wear like this, or I can roll up and wear like this. This is the yarn that came with it. It's not like the fanciest yarn or anything, but it's very warm and it turned out quite nice. This is the first project I made and it took me like an hour. That's it. It's a hat in an hour. That's crazy. Would have been faster if it hadn't been my first project, or if I hadn't made the tube so long that this is like a double thick hat. It's really warm. So then I decided, let's try some thinner yarn, because this yarn is probably it's a good worsted. It's a worsted weight yarn. So I was like, well, let's try some hand spun. And this hand spun is probably heavy fingering to light sport, and it's really loose, but it's kind of cute, right? So and I also made the tube double thickness. And so from that, I learned that for future reference, thicker yarn, as in like worsted, is better, I feel like, than the thinner yarn for a hat. Now, if I had left this open and like made a cowl out of it or a scarf, it's really nice because it's nice and airy and light. But because I chose to make it into a hat, it's a little sloshy. Now, I thought about picking up stitches and like putting an actual like brim on it, but then I'm lazy and that's too much trouble, so I don't think that'll happen. So this was a bit of an experiment. Then at knit night the other night, we still do virtual knit nights on Thursdays. I was telling them about the hats and showed them the hats, and they wanted to see how it worked. So I'm like, well, let me just pull it out and I'll crank something while we're sitting here. And so I put this yarn on there, which is Yowza from Miss Babs in the Deep Sea Jellyfish colorway. And I originally cranked it and I was gonna make a hat out of it. But then I got it off the needles, so to speak, and I really like the fabric for a cowl. So what I did, when I took it off the needles, I put the top on actual knitting needles and then put the bottom on actual knitting needles, and I Kitchenered it together to make a tube. I kind of screwed up at first. I was Kitchenering from the wrong side, so I have a tiny little purl bump row. This is where I Kitchenered. But on the outside, you can't tell. Okay, maybe you can tell a tiny bit. But it hasn't been washed yet. But, it made like the perfect size cowl. This was 130 rows with a DK yarn. So, the lesson for me is DK or worsted yarn, I feel like looks best unless I want something just light and airy for a scarf. And while I wouldn't use this like to make a lot of things probably, it's going to be awesome for gifts. Like, let's say I need a last minute gift, or we have those people at Christmas or whatever where you want to make them something, but they're not knit worthy enough to spend like all your time on them either. You know, you have those people. We all have those people. Those people are going to get cranked cowls and hats. Or if you want to, just do something nice for someone quickly. If you have a birthday that shows up and you're like, I forgot this birthday was coming up, you can crank out a hat or a cowl real quick. So that's what I'll be using it for mainly. I don't see myself like cranking like a whole lot of things, because the longer time I've spent knitting, the more I'm turning into a process knitter, which I think is why I'm enjoying the gnomes. I enjoy the process of putting all the bits and bobs together on these gnomes a lot. So, and there's really no fun process. I mean, you're just cranking for those. It doesn't take long, but you know. Or things like scarves. I hate knitting scarves because they take for freaking ever to me and I get bored. So after I cranked, it's knit, but I cranked that cowl, I talked to Aiden about his scarf that I have started for him. Now I've barely started it, and it's just boring knitting. This is what I've got. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rip this out. And here, I'll do that while we're sitting here talking. I'm going to rip this out and I'm going to crank a big long tube. I have 2 skeins. So I'm going to see how long of a tube that makes when I take it off. And if it's long enough for a full-on scarf for the boy, then I'll just have to cast it off and be good. And if it's not, then I'm going to pick up with just actual knitting needles and just add another color and have like a stripe on each bottom, and to make it longer. So then it'll be like a 2 or possibly 3 color scarf with this as the main color. And it's a nice squishy fabric. I think he'll really like it, and then that way he'll actually get a scarf before, I don't know, 3 years from now when I'm finally done with this one, because it's taking forever, because it just bores me, or it bores me right now, I guess. So for that kind of thing, it'll also be great. So he was pretty excited. He liked my cowl and the squishiness of it. And it is nice because you get a double thick fabric, so it's really nice for around your neck. So as I am frogging this, hopefully by the next time I see you, I'll have a scarf, or most of a scarf. And this transitions us nicely into what's on the needles. Isn't that great? I love it when it happens like that. So here it is, all frogged. All right, let's put you over here. Also on the needles, I have so that bag was my Pokemon bag from Whimsy Stitches, and I have this in a Totoro bag from SoFlo, and the yarn is from Whimsy Stitches. This is his Pride colorway for 2020, and I didn't knit very much on this, but I did get like, I don't know, 5 or 6 rows in. So I'll move my marker because I did work on them just a tiny bit. So here they are. I love how that's just swirling around the sock. All right, so we have those on the needles. The other thing I touched this week, or not this week, well, it was probably this week, I don't know, since the last time I recorded, is in this bag, which is from You So and So, and it is the, what are they called again? Wohin Socks by Kauna Coffee. So I was trying to decide what to do with these socks because I didn't think I would wear them as socks, and I kind of want to keep them for myself because this was yarn that was gifted to me and it's kind of precious. So what I decided to do, you can tell I ripped back. I had like the foot started and the heel done, so I ripped back to where it's just in the leg of the sock. So I'm going to knit a little more on it and make wrist warmers out of it, because one, I have been thinking I need some wrist warmers. And I'm not going to actually do fingerless mitts. I'm just going to do wrist warmers, because then it's up here and warm, but it doesn't hinder my fingers if I'm knitting or typing, which is what I really wanted. I mean, fingerless mitts, you have your fingers out, you can use them, but then it always feels awkward to knit or, no, not type as much, but knit while I'm wearing fingerless gloves. So these will just be wrist warmers. So I might add, like, see, comfortably they can come up to like about here. So I'm going to add maybe like a couple of repeats of the pattern, and then some of the ribbing, so they'll go to maybe about here, and then I can use my hands freely in there, but still stay cozy and still finish this project. One's halfway done. And I mean, the project is almost halfway done, and stay with it. So that's what I've decided to do with that. I didn't actually like work on it as far as like knit on it, but I did give it some good thought and frogged back to where I needed to go. So that's everything I have worked. Oops, I need to put my pattern back in there. That is everything I have worked on in the last couple of weeks, which is quite a lot. Thank you, vacation. And also thank you, weird reality shows on Netflix. I've watched some, I think of them more as like social experiments, I guess. So I watched a season of Love at First Sight. And then I watched a season of Love is Blind. So Love at First Sight, they get married at the altar they like get match made through a matchmaker and then get married. And then you see like what happens in the first 2 months. And at the end of the first 2 months, they decide whether or not they're going to stay married. Very interesting. And then Love is Blind, they meet through like these pods. They're like isolated so that they can't see each other, and the proposal happens before they actually meet in person. Super weird, but very fascinating. And then yesterday I finished a season of The Circle, which is more silly but also kind of interesting if you think about the social and I think the part that really I find fascinating is the social and societal aspects of these shows. The Circle is they're like trying to be influencers and be the best and most liked person in their circle. These are all on Netflix. I find it fascinating, the characters, the personalities, but also then just their reaction just because of societal norms. I feel like it's just interesting. Also fun. It's fun. I mean, let's face it, it's just fun reality TV, but I find it fascinating just the way they interact with each other. I did think about being a sociologist at one point, so it kind of really, or like the psychological aspect, sociological and psychological aspects of these, like their experiments. It's fascinating. Anyway, I do have a little stash enhancement, which is something you are not likely to see again anytime soon, because after revamping my room this past week or two, I don't need any yarn, but I didn't have any of this kind of yarn. So, I think I mentioned last time that I watched the Stephen West color theory class, and after watching that class, I've never really been a fan of mohair, as in wearing mohair, because it's itchy. I live in Tennessee. It doesn't get that cold. If it got really cold, that would be different. I have one shawl that was knit for me by a friend that I absolutely adore, but I can only wear it when it's like really, 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 really cold. Otherwise, it's itchy because it has mohair in it. But after watching that class, I love what mohair does to the color of yarn. It just makes it soft and kind of fuzzy and diffused looking. And so I was looking at Stephen West's patterns, and I decided I'm going to knit myself a parachute, which is basically a vest. So it's a vest. It won't touch my skin because I won't wear it unless it's like over a t-shirt or something. And so I decided to give mohair a shot in a vest. So what I bought was these colors. I bought 2 of the orange, 2 of the purple, and one of each of these. And then to use in that project. And these are Rowan. Oh wait, they're not all the same. These colors are Rowan Kid Silk Haze. It's 25 grams, 230 yards each. And I have 2 of each of these. And then these are Valley Yarns, Southampton. Oh, so these are actually like the Webs. I bought them from Webs. These are like actually the Webs. They feel exactly the same. And they're the same yardage, but different colors. And then, so for some like basic mohair, but then I also bought this. So this is Hedgehog Fibers. It's the Potion colorway, and it's also they're all 70% kid mohair, 30% silk. But this one is 420 yards of, oh my God. So this one will go like, maybe like across the front and the back. Like this will be like the showcase yarn, and the other ones will like frame it. And they all I think I did a good job picking. So this is what they look like. I think I did. I think it's gonna work nicely. So soft. I think I would be able to wear it in a hat as long as the brim didn't have mohair in it. So I've thought about doing a hat where you have like the regular brim, but then the mohair's in like the top of the hat. I just can't stand for it to be around my neck because it gets itchy there. I could handle it in like mittens, gloves, that kind of thing. I'm a delicate flower when it comes to up here. All right, I think that covers everything, and Lord help us, that's like a 47-minute podcast. If you have any questions, send me a message on Ravelry, preferably, or you can send me a message on Instagram. Just be aware I don't check those as often. And I will see you guys soonish. Bye.